Assalamu alaikum. We are from Group 7. So today we would like to presenting about our topic, which is the role of community engagement in empowering the nation. For the subject UNGS 2290, Knowledge and Civilization in Islam. Our group consists of four members, which is myself, Ahmad Arif Faisal. Second one is Arif Hafizuddin. Third one is Said Abdul Qayyum. And the last one is Nur Fatima. Okay. For the presentation overview, our group will presenting about first one is what it mean by community engagement and empowerment, what its definition and its literal meaning. We also will explain about the concept of community as it has a few different concepts. Then we also will explain about the purpose of community engagement and empowerment, which is to ensure that community members know their accessibility to evaluate social setting and activities. Then our presenter will explain about the community engagement models that supported by the Office of Community Engagement. For the fourth one is we will explain about the example of community engagement in Malaysia, such as volunteerism and campaign, World Quran Hour, and also in other countries that promote a policy to bring a better future for community engagement. And the next one is we will also will explain about the case study, which is institutional or an NGO, then about the national state of community engagement, and also about the regional state of community engagement, which is located in Singapore. And then for the number six, we also include in this slide about the evaluation, which is consists of pros and cons of community engagement, which has an impact on the society. And for the last part, we will come to the conclusion to conclude as a whole for this topic. First and foremost, before we go deeper about community engagement, we need to know about defining it to have a better understanding about this topic. Community. Community can describe as a group of people, participant, interest group, or citizen group. A community can be a geographical location, which is community of place, a community of shared interest, which is community of practice, or a community of alliance or identity, which is industry or sporting club. In the context of engagement, community has been understood in two ways. It is sometimes used to refer to those who are affected by the health issue being addressed. This use recognizes that the community as defined in this way has historically been left out of health improvement effort, even though it is supposed to be beneficiary of those efforts. On the other hand, community can be used in a more general way, illustrated by referring to stakeholders such as academic, public health professionals, and policy makers as community. For the engagement, it is can define as the process of encouraging people to be interested in the work of an organization, and can also define as the act or state of becoming engaged or promising to meet or be present at a specific location and time. For the concept of community, in book Principle of Community Engagement, second edition, there are four principles of community which are highlighted. First one is system perspective that related to living creature with various portions representing specific duties, activities, or interests, each operating within a particular bound to suit community need. For example, school focus on education, the transportation sector focus on moving people and product. For the next one is social perspectives, which is a community is defined as the social and political network that connect individuals, community groups, and leaders. For example, tracing social ties among individuals may help engagement leaders to identify a community leadership and understanding its behavior patterns. The third one is visual perspective, which is individual depend heavily on computer-mediated communication to acquire information, meet people, and make life-changing decisions. For example, all forms of communication include email, instant and text messaging, and social networking sites such as Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And the last one is individual perspective, which is individuals have their own feeling of belonging to a community that reach beyond the notion of community used by researcher and engagement leader. They may have a sense of belonging to more than one community, but their sense of membership can change over time and may affect their participation in community activities. That is what is meant by community engagement and empowerment. In the book Principle of Community Engagement Edition 1, the community engagement is the process of working collaboratively with a group of people affiliated by geographic proximity, special interests, and similar situations to address issues affecting the well-being of those people. It is a powerful vehicle for bringing about environmental and behavioral change that will improve the health of the community and its members. It often involves partnership and coalition that help mobilize resources and influence system, change relationship among partners, and serve as catalysts for changing policies, program, and practice. Participation in the community can take numerous forms, and partner can include organized group, agency, institution, or people. Collaborators could be involved in health promotion, research, or policy formulation. Community involvement can also be viewed as a progression of community involvement. A specific collaboration is likely to process along this continent toward greater community involvement over time, and any given collaboration is also likely to evolve in other ways. For the empowerment, empowerment can be defined as the art or action of empowering someone or something. It is the granting of the power, right, or authority to perform various acts or duties. The core concept of empowerment as a key component of community participation may be traced by back to Brazilian educator Paulo Freire. Based on Leverett 2008, empowerment refers to the process by which people gain control over the factors and decisions that shape their life. It's the process by which they increase their asset and attribute and build capacity to gain access, partner, network, and or a voice in order to gain control. And it implies that people cannot be empowered by others. They can only empower themselves by acquiring more of the powers different from. As articulated by Kenneth Merton 2008, empowerment is a group-based participatory developmental process through which marginalized or oppressed individual and group gain greater control over their life and environment, acquire valued resources and basic rights, and achieve important life goals and reduce social marginalization. Ideally, empowerment is both a process and an outcome of community engagement.
Thank you, Arif Faisal, for the introduction. Now, I will be continuing the next part of the presentation. My name is Nur Fatima, and I now will be talking about the importance of empowering the nation. So why is empowerment needed? Or why do we need to empower ourselves and the nation? First of all, empowerment increases potential and self-efficacy. What does it mean by self-efficacy? It means the potential of each individuals and the belief in themselves. This also means that with empowerment, we are able to unlock every individual's potential and making them believe that they are actually capable of doing things. Instead of making people feel powerless, we should be making them feel that they are skilled and they are capable, reliable in the eyes of nation. Empowerment also instills praiseworthy attitudes and qualities With empowerment, we are able to connect with each other, know good and bad qualities which will affect the nation, thus helping us to become more aware of what we are capable of, such as skills, talents, and whatever that will make us congregate ourselves to embark on a journey in empowering the nation. Point 3 suggests that empowerment paves the way for great future leaders. What does it mean by great future leaders? When we talk about having a nation or a civilization, it is true that we need leaders or guidance or a governing body. Almost every country has their own governing body, which then tends to fade away after some time. This is why empowerment of the nation is important, so that we could pass the baton or pass the authority to the next individuals or the next generations who are capable and willing to guide the nation as a whole. Therefore, we need potential individuals with high self-efficacy and high belief in themselves, equipped with skills and good qualities in order to guide the nation as a whole. University of Minnesota suggested a lot of types of community engagement. So now we will only brief 6 of them, mainly community building, community education, deliberative dialogue, institutional engagement. This is a lot. You can see in our campus as well. Direct service, this too, and also engage research. Engage research refers to researchers engaging with the community to find out answers or to find out data for their own research. We will cover this along our presentation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Hafizuddin and I will continue with the example of community engagement. The first example for the community engagement is the IWM volunteerism and campaign. Voluntary continues to be an important agenda in the National Development Mission. The participation of the community, especially the younger generation, in volunteering activities is very important in creating an empathetic community. Especially in IIUM, there were a lot of volunteering programs that were organized to encourage students to be more engaged together with the community. For example, the flood relief mission 2021 that was held by various kuliah and clubs, where not so long ago there was a massive flood that hit the people in various states, which damaged their houses and vehicles. This kind of community engagement is a very positive way in creating a harmonious environment among the community, which is by assisting to clean houses and lighten the burden of the victim to face the aftermath of the catastrophe. Moreover, on the campaign part, IUM had participated as a collaborator in organizing the yearly World Quran Hour program that was broadcast in the entire Malaysia, where in this program, every state in Malaysia must take a specific 1 hour on that day, which usually in the month of Ramadan, just for the purpose to read the Quran. The main focus for this program is to motivate the community in Malaysia to cultivate the activity of reading the Quran as part of daily life routine in order to encourage social transformation so that a Quranic-based community can be produced. Not only that, this collaboration also aims in making the Quran as the main sources in all aspects of life, especially among the community, in order to create harmony and a united community. So for the second example in the national level is the elections, which is election are a method for the people to vote to elect their representative. Election also play a role in confirming those in power, and election are a form of communication between the government and those ruled. These elections are important for Malaysian because the people themselves determine the future of the country. Election are an important practice in a democratic system because through election, the people can elect their own government, representative or authoritative leader. When a credible and responsible leader or representative govern the country, then the administration of the governed country will run smoothly and ensure fair governance. Other than that, elections are also able to ensure that freedom of speech by the community in one's country is protected, in which people's leader address this issue raised by the people so as not to conflict with the views and well-being of society and national sovereignty. As a result, the people will be more confident that their selection is exactly in line with what is expected, which in this point the election engaged the community in Malaysia by promoting a firm and a sustainable government that was made by the community's decision themselves. Nearest example that can be pointed out in for this example is the Johor election 2022 that was held in Johor recently. The last example from the international level is the international volunteering. Taking the point meaning of volunteer from the first point, that community participation in volunteer activities is very crucial in creating an empathetic community. Just to add on the meaning of the volunteer is that volunteer means as giving your time and abilities to aid others, usually a non-profit organization, without the want of financial compensation. Put simply, voluntary is a service to your community. Compared to various issues that arise in Malaysia, there are other countries that are facing a much harder and challenging issue that need for the support from other countries. For example, in the African continent, there are tons of people that need to suffer from hunger. So, for that reason, there was a voluntary wing group such as WFP, which formed the UN to support and fight to end the food hunger in Africa. So, from this example, this kind of support can promote a better outcome and life for the community that was affected in the African countries and make their life even better.
Thank you. Now, I'll be continuing on the case studies part of the presentation. First, we'll start with institutional, meaning within our campus. Next, nationwide or national. And then followed by regional community engagements. The reason why we did this is because we want to expand the scope of community engagement and empowerment of the nation, not to only focus in the country or in Malaysia, but also around Malaysia. First of all, we'll start with Perkim IIUM. Perkim Club is a Dawah-based society that focuses on the welfare of the Ummah. So it operates under the Center for Community Engagement and Services, also known as CENSERV, since 27 November 2011. It's also affiliated with Perkim Kebangsaan, which manages the progress and well-being of clubs under Kelab Perkim University, also known as KPU, including clubs from other universities in terms of management and consultation. So from this paragraph or this excerpt, we can identify that Perkim does not only occur within IIUM, but it's also nationwide. But because the reason why we chose Perkim IIUM is because that it has had a lot of engagement activities, and I myself has been to one of the activities during the month of Ramadan. So who is this Perkim Club? It's a club that strives on engaging with the community in the best ways possible by preaching and caring for the welfare, especially towards the newly reverts, also known as Mu'allaf ala Qulubihim, Aboriginal people, orang asli, homeless community, and the IMUM society itself. So it's located in many places, or it has been conducting community engagement in several places in Malaysia, such as KUI Lemoy, Bening, Batu 16, Pusat Transit Gelandangan, Anjung Kelana, Pusat Pembelajaran Community, and IIUM itself. Like, it conducts humanitarian programs and dialogues, like what I said earlier, dialogues with the IIUM community, implement programs aimed at getting to know and building relationships with targeted groups. Why? Because Perkim IIUM aims to da'wah the society, or the Muslim Ummah specifically, to spread Islamic knowledge in as effective way as possible to all levels of communities. It also strives to create outstanding leaders within the Islamic communities and its Islamic attitudes and wide knowledge. It also tends to communicate to reduce the gap between the communities, to provide dunyawi and ukhrawi knowledge, skills, and training comprehensively, and to help minimize the rate of poverty among the unfortunate targeted groups. We will move on to the national level of community engagement in empowering the nation. Next, we will focus on a project by one of the master students in our campus, which focuses on empowering single mothers in Selangor, a community-based intervention program. What is it about? It is an intervention program for single mothers based in Selangor. So this author, her name is Halimatun Shakira Omar. She was a master student here, and this was her thesis, also known as intervention program for single mothers in Selangor. So she conducted on 40 to 50-year-olds and below single mothers, which was split into two groups: 23 single mothers in an intervention group and 19 single mothers in a control group. The intervention group is the group was able to commit to the intervention program every week, while the control group were only contacted or were only engaged through the media. So it was a 5-week program, conducted every week. So the participants, especially the intervention group, would join in a mosque, having intervention programs, dialogues, focus group discussion, and etc. The reason why the author came up with this intervention program is because that the author found that or claimed that there is a lack of intervention from the current engagements that society has been doing. There are interventions, there are engagements with single mothers nationwide, but the author believes that it wasn't enough, especially from the health sector. So from this particular intervention sought to empower single mothers via health empowerment. So this author also claimed that there were inadequate tools to assess the effectiveness of intervention programs conducted on single mothers. So how was this program conducted? The author used a theoretical framework which is known as a Health Empowerment Intervention (HEI) model to guide or to conduct this particular program, and also the engagement with single mothers from urban and rural areas of Selangor. So this is the Health Empowerment Intervention Framework, which was used by the author herself to guide her throughout creating the programs for single mothers. The results were plenty. First of all, the author saw a rise of self-efficacy in the individuals. They were more open and approachable with each other because they were able to share problems, and they realized that there are more people who are suffering whatever they had back then. However, on the mental health side, though, the author saw that there wasn't any significant difference because the participants were mothers who were capable of doing work. They were well functioning, so there wasn't any mental health issues within them. On the social support segment, there was a significant difference in building support groups for financial and psychosocial aspects. They were able to utilize the platform surrounding them, resources, and they were able to connect with their families, relatives, asking for opinions and help, and even more. In terms of religion, there was a huge improvement in their religiosity in a way that there were more religious activities and engagement within the groups because the class was in the intervention program was engaged in the mosque, so they were affected or they were influenced by the religious activities happening in the mosque. Now we will move to the regional aspect of community engagement. We shall not focus on Singapore. The reason why we chose Singapore as one of our regional community engagement programs is because Singapore, as a secular country, it strives its best to empower the Muslim Ummah there. Because of the number of Muslims in Singapore, it's not many compared to Malaysia, it can be quite challenging for Singaporean Muslims or the Muslim society in Singapore to pursue and empower. One of the community engagements we have chosen is the Asatizah Workforce Development Plan, also known as AWDP. The term Asatizah is pretty popular in Singapore. It refers to the Muslim scholars and teachers in Singapore. Once someone said Asatizah, the whole Singapore knows that it refers to Muslims, religious scholars and teachers in Singapore. So what is AWDP? It is a plan that utilizes the Career Competency Framework, we'll talk about it later, as proposed by COFA, we will also talk about it later, in the pursuit of 3 goals: to professionalize Asatizah, religious scholars and teachers, strengthen main religious institutions. We have 6 religious institutions, we also known as madrasas in Singapore. Thirdly, to nurture more Asatizah of tomorrow, also known as Young Asatizah Assembly. So, who conducts this Asatizah Workforce Developmental Plan? It's actually conducted by Committee of Future Asatizah, also known as COFA, which was established by Minister Dr. Maliki Usman in 2019. It's happening until this current year, and the community engagements are being held in Singapore nationwide, and hopefully it will surpass regional until global. So why does this AWDP exist? So as time goes by, communities change, and so is challenges and difficulties in order to tackle the 21st century issues in Singapore. So as a secular country and a small nation, it requires scholars and teachers who are capable of doing so. So COFA envisions to equip the religious teachers and scholars in Singapore with the backgrounds, knowledges, and skill sets which are deemed as assets and necessities to align them with the contemporary teaching methods. So these engagement programs or community engagement programs with the teachers are being held as seminars, focus group discussions, practical lessons, sharing discussions, dialogues, and many others. So these are some of the photos related to AWDP. As you can see on our left is the Career and Competency Framework. And on our right is our Asatizah Workforce Developmental Plan poster. These 2 posters summarizes the CCF and the AWDP. What we have in the center of the slideshow is the Committee of Future Asatizah. So as you can see, it's a mixture of races, religions, and even people of different backgrounds. So in this particular committee, we have a politician, we also have the ex-Mufti and the Mufti himself. We also have people from schools, institutions, and also outside of that, such as mosques and people working in the halal research. This particular slide shows the overview of the COFA engagement exercises. So it's actually a timeline whereby a lot of community engagements have been held for these particular scholars and teachers. So as we can see, it's not only limited to teachers, but it's also to young teachers.
Assalamu alaikum and hi there, my name is Sayyid Mukoyo and I will be continuing on the pros and cons of the community engagement. Firstly, we will be talking about the pros of community engagement. Okay, what is the pros or advantages of the community engagement? The first one, community engagement motivates social transformation. Secondly, it also creates and maintains harmonious communities. The third one, community engagement also leads to better outcome. The next one, local government can promote sustainable decision with the support of the community engagement. And the fifth one, it also ensures access and community empowerment. And lastly, it is important to the development of democracy, especially in our countries such as Malaysia and Singapore. As for the first one, community engagement motivates social transformation with an emphasis on collaboration and the promise of influence on decision making. The importance of community engagement is clear as it motivates social transformation. It also promotes advocacy that not only works to raise awareness but also passionate. Locally informed voices can be heard, especially during election time. As voters, which is ourselves, communities have the power to make their voices heard. An election represents a significant opportunity to drive change among the society. Advocacy campaigns are at their most effective when local governments municipalities and council activate communities, mobilizing on issues that impact their everyday lives. For is it in a local, place-based arena that community members can have their most direct impact on policy? Traditionally, local government advocacy priorities have been determined by executive-led approach, essentially without community input, and often buoyed by third-party research and data at times, leading to advocacy campaigns that work to benefit external agencies. Community engagement is important as it takes action to influence stakeholders with governments, political or funding power to implement public projects and policies that primarily benefit individual communities and drive social change. And the second one, community engagement creates and maintains harmonious communities. Community engagement is important because it is primarily part of the dialogue where organizations and communities can make decisions to create social capital. Compelling stories of the importance of community engagement range from creating change in local policies and service provision that not only enrich everyday life and livability of communities, but it also help shape and envision the community futures, bringing with it not only wider society change but also global impact. As for the third advantage, who in turn share their aspiration, concern, and value with governing entities. Incorporated into decision-making process, public decision makers are better informed and are better able to meet community needs, establishing the long-standing effective partnership between government organization and the communities results in a greater sense of community ownership and an improved uptake of a service as they are tailored to the unique aspiration of the community. And the fourth one, community engagement ensure access and community empowerment. Meaningful, inclusive communities engagement is important, even critical to community well-being, understood through the values of access and inclusivity, where communities members are informed and educated on issues at hand. Locals are able to contribute meaningfully to engagement and have the capacity to shape those activities. Building on the ideas of empowerment and participation, people's well-being involves participating meaningfully in all aspects in one life. Community engagement then also ensures that community members have access to value, social settings, and activities, so that they are able to contribute meaningfully through those activities, and also develop functional capabilities that enable them to participate fully. The next one, the decision maker. This increased acceptance of decision and community commitment to outcomes as local knowledge from diverse group shapes and create inclusive, effective solutions. The flow-on effect is increased trust in organization and governance to make better public decisions. This is especially vital and essential given the declining trust in government worldwide, which, coupled with the smart city agenda, creates an opportunity for community engagement to deliver a transformative form of continuous engagement between the citizen and the government. And the last one, community engagement is critical to deepening democracies. How so? Depending on the type of community engagement and level of influence given over the communities in the public decision-making process, community engagement strives towards deliberative democracy, which facilitates a collaborative exchange regarding a set of policies or action. All stakeholders of public policies project or local governments and organizations, business, residents, and communities are brought into the decision-making process, nurturing the very democratic idea of community engagement that people should have a say over decisions that impact their everyday lives. Engagement is a time-consuming endeavor and a very lengthy, wise process. As we all know, community engagement programs are taking a lot of time and process. Every step requires an approval and proposal from the higher authorities. Okay, the next one, community groups become unwieldy and difficult to control. Humans are unpredictable, as we all know, so it is hard to control them because we may not know what are they going to be. And the third one, it is costly to maintain community groups and get involvement from a cross-section of citizens. Not every person in the community care about their society. There may be a person who doesn't care at all and just live their lives. And the second one, finding a proper time and adequate place to meet is a problem. To execute the program or the community engagement program, it is so hard to gather all the committees at the same time at the same place because every person has their own schedule. And the last one, community groups usually have an axe to grind with a particular person or a group. This usually happens during the election where the candidates execute a program as community engagement to attract the society or the communities to vote for them.
To conclude, we have discussed the meaning of community engagement as a whole, the meaning to empowerment, the reasons why we have to empower a nation, the types of community engagement, and the further breakdown of case studies, the pros and cons of community engagement. Now, the point here lies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran that He will never change a community or an ummah except for when they change for themselves. This means that Allah or Islam encourages the sense of working together, the sense of congregation, jama'ah. When people work together, we can strive and succeed together. Life is not a race, but a marathon. If you want to go faster, you go alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. Empowering the nation is pretty much important in Islam, especially in Islam, because as we see in the previous caliphates, they have tried their best in empowering the nations in terms of knowledge, politics, society, and many more. So we're not trying to build a new caliphate, but to sustain the Islamic knowledge established by Allah, established by our scholars and teachers of the past.
That is all from us. Thank you for your time and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.